So, moving on from not so long ago, card 8 Strength. Coincidentally, recording done as we moved into Leo season. We carry on the journey to card 9, which is the Hermit. A personal favourite of mine, and a concept that throughout life I have not always found easy, but life has gifted me opportunities to understand and work within self in a solo, singular, largely removed from other beings sense. And it's a nice kind of follow on from strength, which in my understanding is a very going within internalized process to move into a new progression of that. It's like one could say that when solidified certain learnings of the external that fortify, give one resolve, courage, confidence, trust, ability of self is made, formulated, a next logical question could be, well, what does one then do? Yeah, that's one way to put it. And we move to the Hermit. So, to go through a brief synopsis of meaning of the card in progression from strength, it's a message to commune with layers, aspects, parts, depths in an isolate way, in a way removed from other external influences. So it's another call to go deeper, to seek one's own wisdom in a way. And there are many different traditions that have rituals associated with this. Now, I've chosen quite a few different decks here to show components, aspects, portrayals of concepts around the Hermit. And I'll start in the middle and work my way outward. We have the wonderfully expressed Hermit in the Alchemical Visions Tarot in the centre here. Wiggle wiggle. That one. So much wonderful symbolism here. One thing I really, really like here is the costuming of the central figure. Is this kind of scaled skin. A reptilian / serpent portrayal. And if you look towards the right, you will see an owl, and wrapped around the branch is a serpent. And also within, and that's from the Hush Tarot. And then next to it, a tarot deck I haven't featured much called Tarot of the Abyss. We have a woman holding a serpent. And I really like both portrayals. Animals are wonderful representatives of concepts that are familiar within self, within humans. And within the portrayal of the Hermit, who has traditionally been portrayed as a masculine figure, we have a feminine elder, wise woman. And Tarot of the Abyss does a really good job of not sticking strictly to gender stereotypes within certain cards, which I quite like, enjoy, and appreciate tarot decks that are able to still convey a message without getting caught in too much traditionalism and opening up to wider accessibility, imagery, understanding, insight. Now, the serpent or the Ouroboros eating its own tail, a circle symbolism is often somewhat at times a component of the Hermit, and this in some ways takes us back to the circle zero of the Fool. Although the Fool has journeyed relatively far, it's again another period of with the with the self approaching a next level. I would put this at 9. The card number 9 is 1 before 10 IX. is cusping, is going through a threshold of self-knowing, or of knowing in general, or gnosis, which continues on the journey, and wonderfully portrayed. To go back to the serpent, is the tradition associated with shamanism and medicine men. That traditionally oftentimes travel to spirit realm, work in spirit realm to help heal others. Anybody who wants to take a path to heal others in a sense that might fall outside more traditional mainstream methods, will be aware on some level of self-work and initiatory processes. A lot of cultures would have vision quests, or as rites of initiation, whereby the being would be sent isolate alone into nature, oftentimes with a substance to help commune with spirits, with spirit guides, with aspects of self, with God, because these are not separate things, these are things of self. If we put them outside of self and then look to commune to them, we miss a point of knowing they're there and as much a part of us as we are of them. So it's slightly, I think, slightly unnecessary, but obviously it serves some function. So you'll also see the Hermit here portrayed by peyote, another mescaline containing cactus. There are quite a few, and one that has a long tradition of use in the Americas, and even established churches that it's part of their worship. So it's it's an interesting one for me to form a congregation to do a spiritual substance that has traditionally been used by elders and wise ones, or individuals on a path, as initiation. So it's odd to think of it as a shared collective experience within a church, but I've never been, so I won't comment too much about that. But these things shape and shift with cultures and with time. But to return back to this wonderful idea of the serpent and what the serpent may mean and what one's attitude towards that is. A lot of people might look to biblical stories. Tree of knowledge and tree of life. Temptation. Is it good? Is it evil? It's could be either. depending on what stories you've been told, but more importantly, what stories you tell yourself. And I mean, put it bluntly, a snake can kill and will kill quite easily. A snake is a power. A snake is both venom and antidote. So I kind of like that aspect component of it, meaning that to go inside oneself, to remove oneself from distractions of other and world, we can look into parts of ourself or our conscious, subconscious, shadow side, and discern and tweak and own and integrate. So we can continue the path to find that light in that darkness. But to find that light, if you aren't prepared to accept there's darkness, there is no light. So there's no avoiding parts of a process, however potentially painful or confronting they may be. And the Hermit card is really a self vision quest. A vision quest of analysis, introspection, and no surprise that this card then is associated with Virgo, which has quite a lot of those particular traits also associated with it. The other very common symbolism you end up seeing, and just quickly before I go to that, I talked about so you can continue the path. So a lot of times you'll see this symbolism, and I'll move a couple of these around, of the figure with a lantern, a stick for guidance. They're on a journey, they're going for a walk. But it's very still. It's like a paused moment. So the figures are looking for discernment of what is truth, what is valuable, what is enlightening, what is helpful, where is guidance coming from. But they're not going so much outside themselves. They're going within themselves to discern these things so they can continue on the path, because each path is unique. One has to discern how one is to work it for themselves. It can't be co-opted from another. It can't be force-fed. It can't be, oh, look, I read a book, it's told me exactly what to do. That's not learning. That's not owning self. At all, these can be helpfulnesses and guides, but an aspect of work has to come where individual makes choices, discernment, and is ready to accept the consequences of what they will be. I do really, really like that. This one on the left here is the tarot of the magical forest, and we have a polar bear. His feet are stuck. He's got his lantern though. It looks pretty cold, but I know it's a polar bear. It shouldn't be that cold, but he's got a cloak on. He might be a little sensitive to a very harsh winter here. But there's no one else around. There's nothing else to call on except his own internal resources, instincts, understandings. And these things are often never not with us. More we are removed from being in contact with them through whatever reasons. Hence, the hermit need is to reconnect to self, to higher self, to learning, to guidance. And that is a very unique process for each individual. If you're always following the pack, are you essentially living true to yourself and your wisdom and your knowing? And we all have them in varying degrees. And one other card I did take away is a really nice hermit, and this is from Cosmic Tarot, which stays relatively true to traditional depictions of the hermit. And we also have on the other side, for my amusement, the Hermit from the Night Sun Tarot, which I haven't quite looked at enough, but there are some fantastic cards, and hopefully some in the future I will talk more at length about within this one. And I think it really talks towards shadow work, to being able to illuminate one's own areas of shadow, of darkness, of unrecognized, of, potentially projected outwards wounds, components, malfunctionings, malfeasancies, like evilness, that hasn't been worked through and integrated in a genuine way within self. So it's almost like a pause on the journey to do a little bit of cleaning house in those regards. But I absolutely really, really like the Hermit portrayed in the Cosmic Tarot, as there is more than just one source of illumination. There's multitudes depicted in this card. You've got this wonderful lantern here, which strangely looks exactly like a lantern I used to own, that I gave to a good friend, and they use it quite regularly, which is wonderful to hear. So you've got this, but you've also got these stars on the actual fabric of this figure, which I like as a portrayal. It's like the light and guidance is in the fabric of reality, or the fabric of yourself. It's not beyond, it's not outside, it's not separate from. It is there. It's a little subtle, to me. I interpret that as it's a little subtle hint and reminder. It's there, and again, I see this in the, you have this star, this wonderful star, and underneath it, above the lantern, out of the valley, or the depression in two mountains, potentially a valley, you have this other rising light. Or has it fallen? Is it the sun, or is it a star? Well, it's technically both, potentially, or could it be something else? But it's like, it's an interesting concept to slightly explain. As much as I talk about it being a looking inward to self, it can be a very dark place. One thing I'd like to suggest, or is the concept of, it's not always a comfortable place to be by oneself, having to rely on oneself, especially dealing with some gnarlier aspects that you may find it. One thing when approaching work of this type and nature is you may be alone in a locale without beings around you, but you're never really alone. You're communing with as much as you need to, even when beings are not there, sometimes more so, and especially in silence and stillness and pause and reflection. One thing faced in these moments is we can call wherever it be, whether it be somewhat near us, somewhat in past, even somewhat in future, a light source, whether it's conceptualized externally or very present externally or beyond grasp, but still noticeable, recognizable. And we can draw that into ourselves to be nourished at times like this. It's not uncommon for beings. How many millennia have we sat under heaven, under sky, and felt a presence in the light offered us via the stars? Have we thought about our ancestors? Have we thought about our place walking the earth? How many times has that happened? Countless. And will continue to happen. So in the darkness of searching, of self, of soul, of communion to what is truth, what is light, what is my version of that, what is my internal nourishment source, how does that function in with the other parts of me, the light and the dark. It's like there's guidance when we allow it. And the hermit, as much as it is sometimes portrayed as the seeking of it, with the lantern, with the concepts of the journey following one's beat of one's own drum, the analytical, it's about as much also allowing the realizations, the information, the knowingness that each being has and has access to happen. And I really, really like in the Alchemical Visions Tarot that behind the figure you kind of have this circle which is slightly pinched, slightly cut in half, reminiscent of, let's say, hemispheres of the brain or duality or whatever. You have one side quite filled with busyness and symbolism, lights, searching tools, illuminating devices. I think you got matches, candles, an archaic lamp. On the other side, it's very empty. It's a subtle hint of a reminder that as much searching we do, we have to allow space and quietness and stillness to allow answers to be provided. We have to do that as much with others in this world as we have to do it within self. And I really think the central card in this, the from the Alchemical Visions Tarot deck, sums that up really, really wonderfully. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that, and happy remainder of this week. I think it's only a couple days in, but however it pans out for you, I hope it's good, and or whenever you may be listening to this. And yeah, happy hermiting, happy knowing, happy being in self, happy in the pursuit of knowledge of self, knowing of self, reveling in joy in self, because these can all be components of the hermit. There's no lack of literature and poetry and great artistic expressions and minds and souls that sing the virtues of times of solitude. And I will be enjoying some of mine very much so later on this day. So blessings on your journey, and yeah, at some point we will move to the next card.